And then he calls Latia TT.
So the nieces call her TT, and Grant asks if he can call her TT. She says yes, and then she starts calling him Granty and all of this. A lot of T consonant
Did you
sounds.
like their nicknames for each other?
3 out of the 4 syllables are T doing their nickname.
TTT.
Yeah.
Welcome to A Fine Podcast with your hosts, Amanda and
Joseph. Yeah, welcome back, everyone. We are here to discuss hometowns for The Bachelor.
That's right. Can you believe we're already at hometowns?
It's been going at a good pace, though, I think.
Do you feel like he knows the women well enough to have hometown visits?
I mean, I wonder how much length of time is really happening versus, like, the editing process, but are they still spending time as much as they normally would? I would kind of think maybe.
It seems like it's at warp speed.
I mean, that's the only thing that would be not great for them, is if it was going faster to where they're really not even getting a chance to know the person any better or have more conversations with them before making decisions on stuff. But
Well, clearly with 2 people, he didn't get to know them as well as the other 2 people in this episode going into it.
yeah,
We were talking about this and that it seems like he had to put fillers in the final 4.
it's definitely between Juliana and Latia.
You could tell that before going into this episode, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's who I'd said. Pretty sure it's really between them. I mean, Dina was like a third if I had to give someone, but it's definitely really like just between the 2 of them. This is where I get with a show where it's like, if he kind of already knows, it's probably between either or for them. What is the point of bringing these other people along? Like, I almost feel like, with Jones, right? She knew Chuck almost from like the beginning, and then it was like really with not, barely did any of the other guys have a shot even. So by like for hometown, it's almost just bringing them along just to like knowing they're already gonna get shut down. But
And she went on all 4 hometowns, right?
yeah, but then everyone knew Jordan was like a complete
Throwaway.
was just there because he just
a
had to
friend.
be. I think because they've followed this 4-person thing recently, so it was like she had to have a 4th, and I almost feel like for here he just had to have the 2.
You mean 4 people go.
Right, he has the 4, but he's already narrowed it down to 2.
Yeah, and you can definitely see that in some of these dates that he goes on. So let's get into our hometown visits. Our first visit was with Juliana, and this was in Newton, Massachusetts. And Juliana is pretty well known in her town for her big Italian family. So
Yeah, so she really shocks Grant here because she tells him, "Hey, I've got a big family that you're gonna meet, and a lot of people are coming tonight." And I mean, she lists like 30 people.
and he's supposed to remember all of those people's names, and
I don't know about that. I mean, that'd be very impressive if that happened. But
it was just funny to like see him try to keep up with every name that she's listing.
yeah, it's like, here's my aunts and uncles and all my cousins and all my friends and my parents and etc. So, which I was thinking for Grant, man, that must have been extremely intimidating.
Yes, meeting a lot of people. That's a lot of
That many people at once for the first time.
impressions you have to make. Yeah.
Pretty big deal. So that was, I mean, he handled it very well, but it's definitely pressure's on.
Yes. So they go to a pizza place first, and they're making pizzas to bring back to Juliana's big family. And they also make cannolis and they also get some flowers. And then they go to the house. And we learn that Juliana once brought someone home to meet the family other than Grant 7 years ago. And other than that, no one else. But her relationship with that person didn't end well. And the family saw her get hurt. So all the pressure was on Grant this time to hopefully not break Juliana's heart.
Yeah, I mean, they're just probably a little more on edge and defensive over her since it sounds like it was probably already pretty serious or far along in the previous one, and things didn't go through, so it was probably very devastating. So they just don't want a second round of that again.
Right. So Grant, off the bat, is intimidated and scared to meet Juliana's Italian father. And the preview tries to make him look like really mad at Grant for kissing his daughter. Do the impression of the preview.
Yeah, they are
No,
about.
do the impression.
I don't do a good New Yorker. I was like, he's like, hey, you kissing my daughter? I mean, I don't know.
Are you kissing my daughter?
Yeah. You do it better since you're from there.
But he wasn't mad at all. This was a joke. When they first walk in, they walk in to the house, and they go in the backyard. They see the 30 people and her father.
Yeah, which I think I talked about last time with the preview. I was like, I think this is just like a total. It's like one of those joke things you do. It's not like a serious thing that they're making it at least convey in the I mean, obviously, it's like clickbait, right? but it is there to keep you enticed. But yeah, obviously, this was very playful, and there's no tension at all with this, and it's not straining in any way whatsoever.
Her father is very nice.
Yeah, he's very down to earth, and like he's like not at all like a scary guy or anything like that.
So Grant gets a one-on-one with her father, and her father's just worried about the other women that are involved in this process. But they have some touching moments, and Grant says he appreciates him as a father. He would love to learn from him as his father-in-law because he sees how great he is with his family, and they hug, and it's touching, and they have a nice moment together. So all things went well with her father, and he approves of Grant to Juliana. And that was really important to her to hear that.
Yeah. The two guys are very comfortable with each other, and they're very much on the same page with how things should be, and yeah, it's a very nice time. I think this was kind of looking at this and then all the other ones. I think almost because Grant kind of mentions to a little bit, where he didn't have much. His family wasn't large, but it was also very kind of different, not so in unison like her family is, where everyone's very close knit and whatnot. And I think Grant's very drawn to that, and I think he really would almost love to have, his future wife's family be very close knit and tight like that, because I think he almost would want something like that in his life, and then even with his kids, children, to be able to have very close knit ties and whatnot. And so no, I think this is like a huge. I think he's very drawn to this, which I also think, Latia was kind of the same way, which I think is kind of a big deal for him. That these big, tight, close knit families are an attractive thing for him. So
yes, that's what he's looking for
yeah.
Sure. Juliana's dad says, "I love the guy." Very approving. And we also see Grant have a moment with her mom, and Grant shows her his lone wolf tattoo.
Yes, we continue seeing this one. So
keeps popping up.
It's almost like it's an icebreaker for I don't know. For just it gets shown off quite a
Hi, nice to meet you. Here's my lone wolf
bit.
tattoo.
Yeah.
I was a lone wolf once. Yeah, that's a good icebreaker. But I think it was a good way for him to kind of show who he is and tell her mom a little bit about his background. So Grant loved her family, loved her dad. He said seeing her family confirm things for him. He tells her that he's falling for her, and she says she's really falling in love with him. And this was a great hometown visit. The two expressed their feelings for each other, and things couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this was just kind of a great, great experience all around. The right cards were played. Love is filling the air, and both are expressing it. So they're both quite along. And yeah, I mean, she's a very strong contender for winning his heart.
Yes, I think so. So that was nice to see. But let's move on to our second hometown, which was Zoe in New York City. And right off the bat, the two greet each other, and it's very much like Grant looks reserved in his greeting to Zoe. Like you can already tell, like he's like, "Oh yeah, my friend Zoe."
Yeah, he definitely doesn't compare to I think to like Latia or Juliana. He doesn't seem as excited as like compared to them with their first sightings of each other.
Something's a little off. Yeah, romantically, anyway.
And I mean, too, I guess I mean, this is the first one-on-one date that they're getting. So,
Which is crazy to be at this point and not have a singular date.
yeah, your first one-on-one is meeting your family or the other person's family.
It's pretty crazy.
But
But what better way to get to know one another than to have a mock proposal, engagement party, and wedding day
I think this was
modeling
a
event?
terrible idea.
Terrible.
I
I was
think,
being sarcastic when I said what better way to get to know somebody. It was so cheesy.
yeah,
And this kind of looked like a lot of the typical dates, where they play dress up or go do things. And I'm pretty sure was it Gary's season of Golden where the women dressed up in wedding dresses?
yeah, they did on episode 2 there. They did like a dress up in wedding and take
Yeah,
pictures
so
and
I
all
feel like
that.
they took some of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is because she's a model and she wants to show. I mean, she explained this in her talking head, but she wanted to show Grant more of that world of the model side of her and a little more creative side. And
And then the producer said, Zoe, not only will you guys model today, but we need you to get in character of proposal and marriage.
yeah, but this was like a weird setting. I mean,
I think it was awkward.
would have been better if it was a different theme. I
It's like
mean, Grant played it well, but it does. I almost feel like in his head, in his mind, he did kind of almost get put off by this a little bit.
it's like Pascal when his date was the
Yes,
ceremony
yeah,
event.
the band
Yes.
and the forever thing. Yeah, no, I mean, because it is a little, you're in this decision still. It's not like you're official or anything. And then,
And you barely know Zoe at this point.
yeah,
So it's a little uncomfortable.
yeah. I mean, this is like your first one-on-one date, and you're playing proposals and
It's like
marriage. And
rushing into it.
I also find it strange that you would almost want to do something like this because for Zoe, right? She even gets in like a bride gown and everything. And wouldn't you not want him to even
See you
see
like
you
that.
in something like that to even formulate images or whatnot for when if your actual wedding day was going to happen?
I would think if there were legitimate feelings and they really thought they could get married, yes, I would not want to show off a wedding dress or give the idea of what I look like in a wedding dress yet.
I guess she was thinking maybe this would help maybe make
Visualize.
him want it more or something to that effect with this whole theme. But I don't know. to me, it seemed like he was a little put off by this,
I
and
agree. They both didn't look too comfortable with it, with the theme of it. They brought out a ring, an engagement ring, for him to do his mock proposal, and he was like, "Oh, thank you."
yeah, yeah, the whole thing was just very a little strange.
Plus, you're in New York City, and doing this modeling event gave the viewers no indication that you were in New York City. They could have done something New York-esque, like maybe let's go to the top of the Empire State Building together and I'll show you the city, what it looks like from the top, or let's go do a New York related event, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Or
this
a
was
popular
more for
restaurant or something.
for Zoe to show him a little of her life on a daily basis, or what she's kind of
Couldn't they
getting
have done that
into.
in any place in the world and you wouldn't know?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I don't think there's a whole lot of.
This is show your hometown. I would expect her to be walking the streets of New York City.
Yeah, but this was like Pascal when he, for his hometown, he took Joan into his
They walked the
saloon.
city. They did.
Yeah, they did a little bit, I guess. They had a coffee place, but then they went to a saloon and did a lot of,
Saloon.
or
Salon?
salon. He's a cowboy. He's a French cowboy. His
Yeah, but
salon.
that was a huge thing about him. And that was like a mark of him in the city. So that told a good story. I'm just saying
Yeah, I
the
guess that's
modeling event,
true.
it could have been done in a room in Los Angeles and I wouldn't know the difference if we were in New York or not.
Sure, I think she was just more focused on trying to get, especially because they haven't had any one-on-one time yet. It was more of
Sure.
just trying to show
Then
her.
model in Times Square. Have Times Square in the background. Do something on the street of New York.
Yeah, with
That could have been
sure,
fantastic. Do a
yeah,
proposal on the streets. Get like real crowd reactions or something. That actually would have been really fantastic to
yeah,
to model something there.
yeah, like a fake proposal that everyone's clapping for, and then it's
No, maybe they all know it's a fake proposal and this is the Bachelor and we're doing
maybe.
this photo
Yeah.
shoot thing.
I think that would have been everyone would have flooded if they knew it was being
They could have blocked off an
aired there.
area maybe. But like with
Yeah,
Juliana, right? Like you got to see the pizza place. You got to see them making cannolis and walking around and seeing different things before they went to her house. I don't know.
sure, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I wonder how much of it is producer base driven versus what the person in the hometown wants to actually like do that day. Like
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering that who formulates like what they're going to do that day and etc. Because I mean most of it is generally just kind of around you know the city or whatever.
Grant is meeting her chosen family, which she points out is her sister, her aunt, and her uncle. She does not currently talk to her adoptive parents as of a year ago. So I thought this was interesting. The house they walked into, it looked like not a house that anybody lives in. It looked way too pristine and clean and no family knickknacks or pictures or anything anywhere. I think it's an Airbnb that they may have rented out.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I mean you brought this up and yeah, I'm wondering I think you mentioned whether they may have a whether they want to do it in the person's actual home versus or look at they don't want the real house aired on TV, so they find a staged home or something to that effect. So yeah, they maybe get a Airbnb
They definitely
or
did.
maybe ABC just owns some real estate in the area or something that they've.
Definitely an Airbnb. If I had to put my finger on it, that's what I would say.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
But I don't know with this too, like maybe you could have gone to a restaurant in New York and met the family instead of a cold, staged, perfect looking.
cold. I mean, this was like a gorgeous
house.
house. I would love to share that,
I,
be in
I
that
mean, I
house
would too,
too.
but cold in a sense that there's clearly not a family living in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Another place where I didn't really get a sense of who Zoe is because the house told nothing about her.
It does seem, maybe if you really broke it down, right? It almost looks like she is still being like a little bit mysterious in a way or something because it's not the real house or something, but I could understand that to maybe not want that on TV. So
Yeah.
I could find getting a different house just purely for that.
Yeah. I would almost say let's go
But yeah, that's
to a
a
place special to me or to a restaurant or some other.
yeah.
If they had the budget to rent out that beautiful, pristine Airbnb, then they probably could have had a budget to rent a room in a restaurant.
Well, once again, maybe I wonder how much of that was that Zoe's idea or is that the producer's idea to put them where they were.
Yeah, I don't
That'd
know.
be interesting to know.
It was just interesting to see them in there, and then I thought, like, wow, I don't think they live here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a good observation.
So her sister gets one-on-one time with Grant, and she says to him, how did my sister get here if she hasn't had a one-on-one date with you? And Grant pulls out like this political great response to this question because I'm sure that was a very hard question to answer for him or anybody else at this point.
Yeah, I mean that was a great question asked by the sister, and yeah, I mean, i yeah, it feels like he's almost doing some word jujitsu here to play it safe or to still act the interest for or not act, but y- just that he doesn't have the same deep level of connection that he does compared to Juliana or Latia.
He said their connection started later, and that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, he said something along the lines to where, it's not necessarily the amount of time, but the quality of the time. Something alluding to basically just saying, yeah, we haven't had a lot of time, but that little bit of time we've had, like, I just know she's great, and I'm very interested in her.
And her sister says to him, Zoe has an estranged relationship with her parents. Does that scare you? And he says, no, this doesn't scare me. And in fact, he can relate to it.
Right, yeah. Which, seeing kind of how his response to Juliana's father with the whole family thing versus here, that's what kind of made me believe that I think he does really want someone who's got a family that doesn't have a lot of of these similar problems that he had. I think he wants something with a little more unison and whatnot, but that could be just totally wrong. But that's just kind of what I felt like I got from this talk here.
He says, I can relate to it. And you got from it that he wants a different family.
Well, no, he could relate to it, but ultimately, I think he'd like to have a family that did not have the same problems that he had.
So is relating to it a bad thing
No, but
for
I
Zoe?
think it's just not what I just don't think it's what he wants for with his
So it
family.
is a bad thing for Zoe because he's thinking in his head, oh, there's problems. And
Yeah, I mean, I guess if for Zoe to win his heart, yes, it's a bad thing, but
then his sister says, so have you said I love you yet? And he says, oh, no, no, not yet. He's like trying to distance himself from that question. But he says, the feelings, they're continuing to grow though.
yeah. Yeah, so he does not even mention the chance of falling in love yet or it happening soon or just that it's slowly making its way up there. I may get there, I may not, but it's at least going up.
And then Zoe's sister likes Grant, says he's great. And then we end with Zoe saying she feels hopeful, and neither one said that they love each other or that they're falling for each other.
Yeah, I mean neither one seemed to be at that state yet. We've now seen Juliana do it, and we'll see Latia do it. So it's not looking. I mean, she just doesn't look to be nearly at the same level of where Juliana or Latia are. So she's hanging on, but
I thought it was so shocking that they both didn't say anything.
I think it's just because it really is. I mean, I think Grant's just made his mind up, but that it's definitely between Juliana or Latia.
Then walking through this and just putting on the notion that, she has a shot is ridiculous too. But I guess he has to, right?
Yeah, I think it's this. He's required to, and maybe something could happen at, between hometown or, finals now that, you know, lights a spark in his mind to make her feel, to set her apart from everyone else and actually want to continue on with her. But otherwise, it just doesn't feel like there's anything right now that
Yeah.
would spark theirs to excel past Juliana or Latia.
Yeah, it doesn't come close.
I mean, this felt to me like almost like how like maybe a little bit better than how like Jordan's date went with Joan.
And Joan and Grant acted similar to each other
Yeah,
around
like it
the
was,
families and around them, right?
yeah, it's just being nice, going a little bit through the motions, and yeah.
Yeah, I think Zoe and Grant kissed during the photo shoot, and it just did not look like a passionate
I think it
kiss.
would just be one of those things where Grant says, I'd see it just more being, it's more of a amicable connection than a romantic connection.
Yeah. Friends.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see, but nonetheless, it just did not. Sparks were not flying at this
No,
date. It felt
not
like.
at all. No. So let's go into our third hometown, Latia, and we see her in Star Valley, Wyoming, which she says she's not from Wyoming, but this is where all of her family came together. So this is where they all stay now. And Grant says he's entering country now, but he's a city boy.
Yeah, or he mentions, he'd at least like to be in like a suburban area where he's very close to a city, maybe not directly in the city, but at least close to one, and probably not this level of rural. But he will see what her family's like. And obviously, I mean, this doesn't mean they have to they'd live here. I mean, they could obviously live somewhere else. But
Do you think Latia wants to live there?
no, I mean, I think obviously she'd probably want to stay close to her family, but maybe she'd go to a suburban area in Wyoming or something. But
Yeah, I wonder if Grant would be happy in the state of Wyoming.
yeah, I mean, obviously that's the big thing that I feel like they don't talk a whole lot about. Usually, is like where they would actually live or end up after things. Because obviously that's like a huge point that I don't feel like gets discussed a whole lot.
It doesn't get enough attention. Yeah.
I would think at least by like the fantasy suites or finale or whatever, they would have a lot more conversation. I felt like Joan and Chalk did actually have quite a bit about that beforehand, but
I think that set them up for success. For
yeah, and I think with them being older, that's more on their mind, where the younger ones are not so much. But I don't feel like they discuss that enough beforehand. I mean, even like the Gary and Teresa's, they like fell apart purely because of like the location thing. So
yeah, so maybe we'll see some more discussions about that later on.
yeah,
So they ride horses in the country together before they see Latia's family. And Latia says that Grant is the first person that she's bringing home to her family that is not in her religion. So then there's this big interview with Grant where he says, Mormonism, that's new for me. He says he's nervous, but he's open minded. So he's just worried the family might not accept him as easily because he's not of their same faith. He says he believes, but he is not Mormon.
Right. Yeah, there's some common ground on some things, but he's not 100% in that world. So yeah, so that's where we saw the preview with like the drama
The drama.
of Latia, but it was just basically his talking head before he's walking up to meet them. But yeah, she's very much the same as like Juliana as far as very large family. I mean, he meets a whole slew of people too, and
They're all in the backyard of this big house, and it's almost like a family field day. What he walks into, they're playing tug of war and different outside games with everybody. There's a lot of kids there. And then he calls Latia TT.
so the nieces call her TT, and Grant asks if he can call her TT. She says yes, and then she starts calling him Grand T, and all this a lot of T consonant
Did you
sounds.
like their nicknames for each other?
Yeah, the 3 out of the 4 syllables are T between their nicknames.
TTT.
Yeah. So
I thought that was sweet that they have nicknames for each other. Grand T.
yeah,
But yeah, it was kind of funny.
the Grand
to
T
hear
almost sounds like
Grand T.
grandpa or something, or like some
Grampy.
version of grandpa or something. Yeah.
What'd you think about the tug of war game?
I don't know. I mean,
Grant fell over.
they did it, and his side lost, and yeah, he did kind of have to step over some people, but yeah, they did tug of war. I mean, they just did a bunch of family games around the place, and I don't know. It's very similar to, I feel like, I mean, a little more in a game setting thing, or a lot more activities happening, but very kind of similar to Juliana's setup.
Juliana's was like a nightcap version of Latia's.
Yeah, where Latia's was during the day, and
That's probably why they
Yeah.
had all those activities.
yeah,
But yeah, he does extremely well in these big groups of people where most people would feel intimidated. And even if he felt intimidated, you couldn't tell from the outside
yeah,
that he was.
right.
Latia's dad says this is mainly his wife's side of the family, and Grant is experiencing a lot of what he experienced when he first joined the family as well. So he says it's a lot all at once. But he relates to Grant in meeting everybody in this fashion. Which you mentioned, didn't Latia's father pass away when she was 3 months old? And we kind of went back to the beginning Bachelor episodes where we learned this information to remember that, but then they brought it up too.
Well, it was, yeah. I mean, this was nice because they mentioned, or because they showed it, just father. It wasn't like stepfather or
I
any
think
other
that's really
sort.
nice that
Well,
he was listed as father.
Yeah, I'm assuming
The mom
Lydia
got
wanted
remarried.
him.
Yeah.
Lydia wanted him named just father because, I mean, really for her, was like her main father growing up. So I think that was a nice gesture for her to do that. But yeah, I just was like, wait, just wanted to make sure that she was the one who had the father pass away when
Right.
she was very young. So, but yeah, they have a good conversation, him and Grant.
Her dad talks about faith with Grant, and he says as long as Grant believes and he has faith and he has values, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So I think this eased Grant's worries a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he, going into this, he was very worried that if he wasn't Mormon, then things would probably not be able to continue on potentially with Latia. But after the conversation with the dad, he, I think, feels more comfortable with him and where things are going. So
Yes.
yeah, I think this was a big relief on his shoulders. So.
And then he talks to her mom, and her mom says as long as he's faithful, she's supportive of them as well. So that conversation goes good. And both parents say that Latia is ready to start having kids and ready to start a family right now. She's very eager. So we're kind of like pushing this on Grant, like, yes, she's ready now, now, now.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, Grant's mentioned that he's very much ready for a family. So I don't think this was very off-putting to him or anything. I think it was just he was fine with it. It wasn't like a spook thing for him or anything. So
How fast do you think Grant wants kids? Because it sounds like the parents want her to get started on that.
I would say probably pretty soon afterward. Maybe have a year or two to themselves, maybe, and then start something. But I mean, he seems quite ready as well. So
Yeah. But they made sure
I
to
mean,
say this a
yeah,
lot.
they're making her pan out like day one. They're ready to start, but
So we see Latia talking to her grandfather as well, and they have a touching moment where they talk about her father a little bit before he passed away. And she tells her grandfather that she loves Grant and she wants to give him a family that loves him. And she talks about the date that her and Grant went on where they really bonded over Grant opening up about his childhood and feeling alone. And that made her really want to care for him in the future.
yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to think, this was the maternal grandfather,
Yes.
because he was talking about how y- she got set up or met, her dad, Latia's dad originally, and everything. But yeah, it seems like they have a very close, tight knit relationship, and Latia seemed, she mentioned when her grandfather kind of realized how much she likes him and everything, that it must be very apparent then if he's even picking up on it. So
When she's talking to her mom encourages her to let Grant know that she loves him. She says, Grant needs to hear this from you. And it's time you open up to him. And she's just scared because there's other women involved too. So she talks a little bit about how I think she's scared of what's to come during fantasy suites with Grant and the other women and them developing their connections further.
yeah, yeah, she does state this as a concern, but yeah, I mean, I think that'd probably be on all their minds. So
She's the first one to mention it.
yes, yeah, right.
So the date ends with Latia telling Grant that she's falling in love with him and he feels the same way. And that's the end of their date. So another date that went really well.
Yeah, and so Latia and Juliana are both falling for him, and he's falling for both of them, and they are definitely top two contenders.
Yeah. I would say the only thing about Latia now would be if something else came up about them having different backgrounds and faith. I don't know if that'll come back up again or not.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something. I would think that could come up maybe later on. I don't think that would be something that we would see on the show. It's not going to be finals or anything like that. I guess maybe potentially,
That
but
could be a reason why he doesn't
yeah,
choose
I
her.
guess that's true. Maybe something like that. Yeah, yeah. No, I guess that's right.
I don't know. That would be my only, if I could think of something that maybe wouldn't work out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the potential for the biggest hurdle for them. Yeah.
But all things went well regarding that conversation this go around. So,
Yeah. It doesn't seem like anything would potentially creep up yet.
yeah.
So
So, our fourth hometown date, Dina in Chicago, Illinois. So, we learned that Dina comes from a big traditional family. Her dad is a pastor, but putting themselves out there is very difficult for her family. And we learn that we will not be meeting her family members. Grant will not get a chance to introduce himself because at the last minute they said they do not feel comfortable being involved.
Yeah, Lucia mentioned, or I think it's Lucia. Dina mentions, I've got this news I've got to tell Grant it's going to be difficult, and I was like, oh, this is totally no family that's going to happen, and so yeah, so we see the no family, and I think this really, really set. I mean, she even felt it and said it to him as well, but really set them back as far as a way for them to grow more by not being able to get to meet them.
I think as soon as she said that, it was like someone let all of the air out of the room, and Grant was so disappointed that that was the end of them right there, pretty much, which is
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, because I did think, I mean, between Zoe and Dina, Dina definitely, I think, was a stronger connection for him. But then, yeah, when this happened, this just like totally deflated everything here and definitely gave Zoe the chance to be a contender now, at least for the third spot, or to not be eliminated.
Definitely. So it was very disappointing. And you could tell how disappointed she was. It was really sad to see her like this. And
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was very unfortunate, I think, and I mean, I can understand, our family not wanting to do it, and it would have been nice if there could have been like some way to off, not film or something. Have some way that they could meet still, maybe potentially off camera, and at least just because we see her friends join her later, and at least still have that.
yeah.
At least there's something because I don't know, purely to have a relationship fall apart purely because someone doesn't want to be on TV isn't.
I think you said that while we were watching it, like your relationship would already have to be so strong for this to be something that you could overcome, not meeting the family right now. And I don't think their relationship was exactly solidified yet. So then when this happened, it was just, I don't think we can work through it then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was getting to this stage already for them was, I think, probably a little bit too much. But yeah, it would have been nice if they could have at least figured out something to.
Yeah, like a private thing, but
Yeah, or maybe they did, and maybe they weren't even open to that or something. Maybe they just because of
or
the
maybe they
whole.
weren't
But
allowed.
yeah, yeah.
But
I don't know. It does feel like a lot of this for that was just why this fell apart was like centered around that. Which I don't know. Maybe the relationship should have been further, should have been stronger by this point or something. But
yeah.
anyway, yeah.
So they go to a pumpkin patch and we see a big group of Dina's friends. And Grant tells her friends that he's close to falling for Dina. So he's not falling for her, but he's close to falling for her. And we learn here the family not buying in could be a make or break moment. And it turns out to be a break moment. But Dina tells her friends that she's in a place of falling for Grant. And she would want her family's blessing, though. If this did end up an engagement, she would prefer to have her family's blessing on the whole thing. And right now she doesn't have it, which spells out trouble. So,
Yeah, I think this was too. I don't know. It felt like there was just like building blocks of building the wall to end the connection here or something. Because
it sounded like right there she was just so sad about her parents not being involved and then so sad of the thought of getting engaged without their blessing. And yeah, it was crumbling.
yeah. I mean, this date kind of just felt like it was
Fell apart.
getting almost. I mean, the date itself was fine, but it was
The
like
friends were
the
really nice.
underlying
Yeah.
issues were just mounting, and then it was just gonna really there was dead on arrival. So
It was basically a fun time to hang out with some fun friends, and then the
Yeah.
underlying tone was not fun. It was sad.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
got through it. They say goodbye. Neither say they love each other. And that's how the date ends.
Yeah. 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 I mean, there really wasn't much here. Because, I mean, I think, yeah, like you said, it really just all the wind got sucked out.
Yeah. And once it was gone, it never came back. And that was it.
Yeah. It was just like a fun hangout day or something. But
It's like, let's go hang out. We know this is not going to work out at all, but
yeah, there's
whatever.
no potential here.
So the 2 weak dates, Zoe and Dina,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the 2 strong dates, Latia and Juliana.
Yeah.
Yep. So after he's done with all the dates, Grant meets with Joey. We see Joey come back.
Yeah. So he appears for a very short time, basically kind of like what they do with the previous alumni is just kind of like a resounding board for Grant to, tell about his fears. And, he's at the point where, I'm worried about making the wrong mistake. And how did you do at this point in your journey and all these things? So,
Joey gives good advice too. So he says, you always have a gut feeling, right? And you should trust your gut and always go with that feeling and do what's true to your heart, what you think is best. And he also said something interesting here that he didn't really get to fully know Kelsey until Fantasy Suites, really. So, which makes sense, right? That's the first time you're having an extended, long conversation with somebody without getting interrupted by anybody else or
well, yeah, you're
getting cut
finally
short.
getting like a one-on-one that's the entire day with no other distractions, and you can really hammer down conversations and whatnot that you need to get out of the way to feel better about the person. So yeah, that seems like that would be that's really where you're gonna kind of lock down who you think is best for you. And so yeah, I mean he I think kind of helps clear Grant's head of some of the doubts or uncertainties he's having. So
Yeah, gut feeling, go with it. That's his great advice that he gives. And Grant takes that advice too. But while he's meeting with Joey, we see the women talking about how their hometown dates went. And you can see just how sad Dina was listening to the other 3 women talk about how much fun their families had meeting Grant. And she was just totally upset here.
yeah, so she's just very distraught here, seeing everyone else's went well, hers didn't go so great. So I think she kind of knew at this point that, or leading up to it, that she was probably the one to go.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So it's time for the rose ceremony, and it's in an LA theater this time. And the roses are Latia, Juliana, and Zoe, and no rose for Dina.
Yeah, like I thought going into this before watching it, I figured Zoe was going to be the one that was cut, but then once she revealed the parents weren't, then I don't know, I almost thought maybe there could still be potentially her, but it probably is leaning in Zoe's favor at this point. And it does seem to look like that, so Zoe makes it, and Dina unfortunately says her goodbyes here. And no, I think the way she handled it, I mean, probably because I think she kind of already knew and was anticipating that she was going home, so it wasn't so much of like a blind side for
I
her.
think she was prepped for this going
Yeah,
into it.
because I will say her conversation with him, after it was
Very mature.
quite mature, yeah, and handled very well and whatnot. And I think probably because she anticipated it.
Yeah.
Versus being, yeah. So, but yeah, no, it was very, very well done.
Yeah, Grant was very mature as well with the way he handled it and walked her out nicely, and they had some kind words to say to each other. And yeah. And then she got into the car and was reflecting on everything and had nothing but positive things to say. And she knows this was right for her.
So she is gone. Now we have Zoe, Juliana, and Latia.
So, what's your prediction for finals now?
I still think Juliana's number one. She's been my number one now, I think, pretty much pretty much the whole season. And obviously, I mean, he's only confessed falling in love to Juliana and Latia so far at this point.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that leaves Zoe in third
I,
place.
I mean, they'll do well. Yeah. So when they start finals, because next week we've got the
Women tell all.
Yeah. But the first part of the finals, that's where Zoe will go home, and then it'll be Latia and Juliana in the final. But I still think Juliana will go all the way, and then
Juliana's my first place too. I just think it's going to be very close between Juliana and Latia. But if I had to say, Juliana first and Latia second.
yeah. I mean, in the preview, there's that moment where Jesse's waiting for Grant to make his decision of who to bring out first and Grant says he doesn't know yet, and he's really making his decision at
On the spot.
very last moment possible. But so yeah, I guess we'll see who he picks. But
I think it's Juliana, and those doubts or the questioning about the religion and is he going to be able to fit in?
yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit stronger, and yeah, I just think there's less things that could potentially get in the way for them.
So in the preview for the Fantasy Suite episode coming up, we see Juliana crying. She says she wants Grant forever. And then we see Latia saying she doesn't want Grant to be with the other women in the Fantasy Suites. That's her biggest fear. And that's really all the new information that we get.
Yeah, there's like nothing with with Zoe. So
yeah, how come Zoe wasn't featured in this a lot?
Because she's already out in the first half, so
they didn't have much footage to roll for this.
Yeah, there's a lot more for the other two.
I think maybe Zoe hugs him or something.
Yeah. Or they show like a little bit of walking on a date or something, but yeah, so yeah, I mean, not a lot was really given away. So, I mean, which is good because I mean, they really shouldn't. I mean, they can't give because it would give too much at this point.
But maybe they already gave away the final two.
Well, I think it's almost natural at this point, unless there is just some crazy thing that happens for Zoe to make it.
I mean, it's obvious, yes, but you are right in that they didn't work her into that.
I mean, for sure, if anything, there's that one clip that I saw from the very beginning, in the very first preview of before the show even started, of Grant and it's Juliana jumping in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And if that episode or if that clip isn't showed within the first part of the finale or Fantasy Suite, then, she at least makes it to the finals. But yeah, I mean, that's like already a given at this point. Like, I'd be stunned otherwise. But
yeah, there's like a 1% chance.
Yeah, unless some crazy catastrophe thing happens. But there's definitely no signs of it happening now.
Yeah. So next week, we're excited to review the Women Tell All episode. It's time to relive all the drama, and all of the women are back to talk.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this episode, I feel like would be a little bit nicer almost after everything. I don't know. Maybe not.
But maybe they think no one would watch if you already knew the outcome.
I mean, that's true. That's probably why they're forcing you to do this, because I think people would tune out.
Well, actually, I was a little disappointed it wasn't Fantasy Suite time when we saw this. I'm like, no, because you want to follow the story and find out what's going to happen. But instead you get Women Tell All, and you get to hash out everything that already happened.
Yeah, it's just this divot that just like breaks all momentum
and breaks all momentum.
Yeah, but nonetheless, we will discuss it, and
yeah, it'll be fun to recap.
Maybe there will be something exciting to discuss from that, but
yes,
we will find out.
I think from that like little preview we got, we see Allie Jo come back, and she's going to discuss some of her drama.
Yeah.
And then Carolina, of course, is coming back to discuss all of hers.
yeah, we'll get some more inside information on what went down. So
What went down? Women tell all.
yeah, next week.
Next week, we'll be here. Will you?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of A Fine Podcast.
Yeah, we hope you like this episode and tune in next week where we tell women about everything. And
where
then,
women tell us about things and we recap what the women said.
Yeah. So check that out. Check us out on our social media if you haven't already. And like and subscribe if you like it. And we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Women tell all.
Ciao.
Bye.